All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling a challenge that pretty much everyone in the working world has faced. How do we stop creating those training sessions that people forget the minute they're over? You know the ones. We're going to lay out a blueprint for building learning experiences that actually work, that stick, and that really drive performance.
I mean, come on, we've all been there, right? Staring at a screen, clicking next on a series of slides, just wondering, how is this supposed to help me do my job better? It feels like such a huge waste of time, not to mention money. But here's the thing, it really doesn't have to be that way. The problem isn't training itself, it's how it's designed.
So you've got two very different worlds. On one side, you have the classic information dump. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. They just pour knowledge into your head and most of it spills right out. Then on the other side, you have effective learning. And this is all about actively engaging, participating, and building a real understanding. Our goal today is to figure out how to make that shift from just passive listening to active doing.
So here's our roadmap. We'll cover 5 key areas. First, we'll look at why so much training just fails. Then, we'll get to know the adult learner. Super important. From there, we'll unpack the classic ADDIE blueprint and look at some modern alternatives. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the one key idea you need to remember.
Okay, first things first. Before we can build something that actually works, we have to understand what causes so many programs to fail in the first place. And it turns out there are some really common, very human obstacles that can completely derail even the best laid plans.
Think of these as the invisible walls you're up against. A low tolerance for change means people are resistant before you even start. If they don't trust the process or the person delivering it, forget it. If they've had bad experiences with training in the past, and who hasn't, they'll come in skeptical. Peer pressure is huge. If the cool kids think training's a joke, it's really hard to take it seriously. And maybe the biggest one of all, if leadership isn't truly, visibly committed, nobody else will be either.
So how do we start breaking down those walls? Well, it all begins with one fundamental principle. You have to know your audience. And in the workplace, your audience is adults. And this is key. Adults learn in a totally different way than kids do. Now, the formal term for this is andragogy. But don't let the fancy word fool you. The idea is pretty simple. It's built on a few core truths. Adults see themselves as self-directed. They bring a lifetime of experience to the table, and they need to know why they're learning something. Their motivation isn't about getting a gold star, it's internal. Learning has to solve a real-world problem for them, right now.
And these principles aren't just theory. They have really direct, practical applications. So, for example, since adults crave that real-world focus, the application is straightforward. Show them exactly how this new skill is going to make their job easier tomorrow. They want their experience and opinions to be respected? Great. That means you should build a collaborative environment, not just a one-way lecture.
Now, within that group of adults, you also have different learning styles. A huge chunk of the population are visual learners. For them, seeing is believing. We're talking about diagrams, charts, videos, clear written notes. They literally process the world through their eyes.
Then you've got your auditory learners. For these folks, hearing is understanding. They really thrive in group discussions, listening to a compelling speaker, or even just talking a problem out loud. The little nuances in tone of voice actually help them remember the information.
And finally, you have the kinesthetic learners. These are your doers. They learn by getting their hands dirty. Making them sit still through a long PowerPoint is basically torture. They need role plays, simulations, building things. Any kind of hands-on activity is what makes learning stick for them. And honestly, the best training finds a way to cater to all 3.
Okay, so we know our audience, we know the obstacles. How do we actually, build the thing? Well, for decades, the gold standard in the industry has been a systematic process called the ADD model. Think of it as a super reliable, step-by-step blueprint for getting it right.
So, as you can see, ADDIE is just an acronym for its 5 phases: analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. It's designed to be a cycle, and here's the crucial part. The success of each step depends entirely on how well you did the one before it. You absolutely can't skip steps and expect a good result.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with analysis. Honestly, this is the single most important phase, and it's the one people are most tempted to rush. This is where you stop guessing and start diagnosing. You're not asking, what training should we do? You're asking, what's the real business problem here, and is training even the right fix?
A proper analysis looks at 3 different levels. At the top, the organizational level, you ask, where does training fit into our big picture company goals? Then you zoom in to the task level. What specific skills are actually needed to do a job well? And finally, you get down to the individual level. Who really needs this training? And, just as importantly, who doesn't?
So, once your analysis is solid, you can move into design and development. Think of the design phase as the architect's blueprint. This is where you write really clear, measurable learning objectives. Then, in development, you become the construction crew. You're actually building the course materials, making the slides, and picking out the activities that will bring those objectives to life.
And this is your chance to really engage all those different learning styles we talked about. Instead of just another lecture, you develop active, hands-on experiences. Case studies to get people problem solving, role plays to practice tough conversations, simulations to mimic real-world challenges in a safe space. This is how you make learning active, not passive.
Next up is implementation. This is the go-live phase, where the training is actually delivered to your audience. But a really critical part of this step is the pilot test. You run the training with a small, friendly group first. Why? To catch any awkward wording, any tech glitches, or confusing activities before you roll it out to hundreds of people. It's like a dress rehearsal. And finally, we have the phase that gets skipped way too often: evaluation. This is where you close the loop. You go all the way back to those objectives you wrote in the design phase, and you measure. Did we actually achieve them? Did people's behavior change on the job? Did performance improve? This data is absolute gold for proving the value of what you did and for making the next training program even better.
Now, ADDIE is fantastic. It's thorough, it's reliable, but let's be real, it can also be pretty time-consuming. And in today's world, we often need to move faster. So let's look at a couple of modern alternatives that are built for speed and iteration.
So on one hand, you have SAM, which stands for the Successive Approximation Model. Unlike ADDIE's straight line, SAM is all about rapid cycles. You brainstorm, you build a quick and dirty prototype, and you get feedback, then you do it again. It's a fail-fast, learn-faster approach. Then on the other hand, there's action mapping, which is laser-focused on business goals. It starts with the question, what measurable action do we need people to take on the job, and then works backward to identify only the absolute essential information needed to do that. It's ruthless at cutting out all that nice-to-know fluff.
So, whether you're using a classic blueprint like ADDIE or a more agile approach like SAM, all really effective training is built on the same core idea. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about learning at work.
I think this quote says it all. The most important takeaway here is that the best learning isn't a one-time event that pulls people away from their jobs for a day. It's a continuous process that's woven right into their work. It's about creating a culture where learning and doing are just two sides of the same coin. And that really brings us to the final question, the one for you. After everything we've talked about, from understanding adult learners to using a structured design process, what is the one single step you can take to make your very next training initiative just a little bit better? Because that's where real change always begins. Thanks for tuning in.